Chapter 1 of A Little Country Girl. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Lynne Thompson. A Little Country Girl by Susan Coolidge. Chapter 1. On the Eolus. It was on one of the cool, brilliant days which early June brings to the Narragansett country that the steamer Eolus pushed out from Wickford Pier on her afternoon trip to Newport. The sky was of a beautiful translucent blue. The sunshine had a silvery rather than a golden radiance. A sea wind blew up the western passage, so cool as to make the passengers on the upper deck glad to draw their wraps about them. The low line of the mainland, beyond Conanicut and down to Beaver Tail, glittered with a sort of clear-cut radiance, and seemed lifted a little above the water. Candace Arden heard the captain say that he judged, from the look of things, that there was going to be a change of weather before long. Captain Peleg King was a great favorite on his line of travel. He had a pleasant, shrewd face, grizzled hair, a spare, active figure, and he seemed to notice every one of his passengers and to take an interest in them. "Going down to Newport, miss?" he said to Candace, after giving her one or two quick looks. The question was superfluous, for the Eolus went nowhere else except to Newport, but it was well meant, for the captain thought that Candace seemed lonely and ill at ease, and he wished to cheer her up. "Yes, sir," she answered shyly. "Your folks there for the summer?" he went on. "No, sir. I'm going to stay with my cousin, Mrs. Gray." "Mrs. Courtenay Gray, you mean, I guess. Well, it's queer, but I sort of thought that you favored her a little. She's down early this year. I fetched her and the family across on my evening trip more'n 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Gray's a mighty nice lady. I'm always pleased when she comes aboard. Wouldn't you like to take a seat at the wheelhouse, miss? The wind's blowing pretty fresh." Candace was not aware that this was a distinguishing attention which the captain did not pay to everybody, and which she owed partly to her connection with Mrs. Gray, and partly to her solitary look, which had touched Captain Peleg's benevolent heart. He had a girl of his own over to Wickford, who was about the same age, and it made him kind of tender toward other girls who didn't seem to have any one to look after them. But the wind was fresh, and it was pleasant to be spoken to and noticed by someone on this, the first long journey of her short life, so she thankfully accepted the captain's invitation and let him escort her along the deck, and assist her to mount the 2 steps which led into the wheelhouse. It was rather a pleasant-looking place in which she found herself. 3 sides of the little enclosure were lined with windows, through which the green shores, which seemed to be rapidly drifting past them, could be seen. The 4th side was filled with a long, cushioned bench. In the middle of the glass front was a big brass wheel, shining with polish and friction, and revolving artistically in the hands of its steersman, who kept his eyes fixed alternately on the water and on his compass. There seemed to be no regulation against speaking to this man at the wheel, or if there were, it was not strictly regarded, for 2 young ladies, who were already ensconced in one corner of the long seat, were plying him with all manner of questions. They were rather pretty girls, of that hard modern type which carries the air of knowing everything worth the knowing, having a right to everything worth the having, and being fully determined to claim that right to its fullest extent. As Candace entered, they favored her with one rapid, scrutinizing glance that took in every detail of her apparel, from the goatskin boots, which were too large for her feet, to the round hat whose every bow bore witness to a country milliner, and after that they noticed her no more. She, for her part, only too glad to be left unnoticed, looked shyly out of the corners of her eyes at them. They seemed to her inexpressibly stylish, for their tailor-made suits, though almost as plain as her own dress and jacket of blue alpaca, had that perfect fit and finish which makes the simplest dress seem all that can be desired. There was a knowing look to each little detail, from the slender silver bangles which appeared beneath the loose wrinkled wrists of their very long gloves, to the tortoise-shell pins with which their hats were fastened to the tightly braided hair coiled low down on the nape of the neck. Candace's hair fell in curls to her waist. She had always worn it so, and no one had ever thought
Sample complete. Ready to continue?